So I say you can still strength train, but this may be the time you just maintain those peaks that you had for the first part of your cycle. And then you can sustain that. You can try to continue training, but let's say you hit walls and you're not able to. Work in some more recovery days. Walking is wonderful. It's free, it's underrated, and it works amazingly for body comp, hormonal health, and metabolic and mental health. So, I mean, it's literally the best thing you can do for your body. So walk more, do more yoga, really listen to your body. And then we start it all over again as soon as we have our bleed. And that starts day one of our next cycle. And so that's how I do it with myself. But I also recommend that with my clients.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepeck, your host and health coach, here with you every week for Wellness Without the Weirdness. And I think a hot topic today is menopause and perimenopause. And there is so much information out there now on that topic. But for a long time, I think it was this piece of health that was very hush-hush that nobody really understood. And frankly, I mean, we didn't even really understand our cycles even before that phase of life. So needless to say, I think there's a reason why we were confused to start. And now with so much information, I think we are still confused, just like the other side of that coin. And I'm always here to clear up confusion, uncomplicate health and wellness. And I'm excited for today's conversation to focus on the connection between our hormones and body composition. Let me introduce you to our featured guest. She's a leading expert in sustainable weight loss. She helps women heal their metabolism, balance their hormones, and achieve body composition changes that last a lifetime. She has a bachelor's of science in exercise and nutrition and is a certified personal trainer, professional nutrition coach, and health educator with nearly 20 years of experience. She's the host of the Cheers to Your Success podcast and the founder and president of Metabolic Fix, a premium online coaching company that has helped thousands of women finally break free from chronic dieting and achieve long-term sustainable results using the Metabolic Fix method. She's deeply committed to helping women better their lives and strives to inspire others to embrace the life of health, happiness, and self-love they deserve. Sound familiar? You hear why we are such a vibe. Please help me welcome Ashley Fillmore.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your show. And I absolutely loved your initial introduction, all the health stuff without the weirdness. And I smiled because I was like, exactly, that is what we need more of in this world. Like, why do we have to overcomplicate these things? It's so hard for the consumer and those listening in to get it. So I love the work that you're doing. And thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, well, thank you. And likewise, we'll fill everybody in. This is not our first conversation.
Right.
So when you finish listening today, pop over to the Cheers to Your Success podcast. Our conversation for your show, Ashley, aired May 5th. So that was also a great one. I'm excited for everybody to hear it.
Yeah, it'll be great. And you're right. This isn't our first conversation. So I'm so excited to see you again and talk with you.
Yeah. All right. One more bit of housekeeping. We have to tell our members what they're getting this week. So members, your recipe, oh my God, this is such a good one. It is for pizza salad with creamy Parmesan vinaigrette. So I hear from people all the time, especially living in New York, people love their pizza. Love their pizza. And this is a great summer version. It's all the flavors, lighter, certainly healthier. And then because it's June, the third month of the quarter, it's also time for your live Q&A, which we're doing as a one-on-one again, just you and me. So if you want this recipe or a one-on-one health coaching session, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal. I say it all the time. It's a steal when you take advantage of the full offerings because you're saving far more than that $10 cost. This month alone, in June, with that one-on-one, I mean, you make back the money for the year and then some. So when you take advantage of the full offerings, like I said, you save far more than that $10 cost. It's a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast and this community so we can continue to bring you new episodes and experts every week. So remember, you're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the episode notes below because that's a whole lot easier. Once you're there, you click the little I agree button and then support now, enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You're going to get this week's recipe for the pizza salad with creamy Parmesan vinaigrette and your quarterly live Q&A that's a one-on-one health coaching session for you. All right, Ashley, we heard in your bio, you're a trainer, your degree is in exercise and nutrition. Were you always interested in this space? And then when did your focus become sort of this phase of life and your specialty now?
Yeah, so I was always interested in health, and initially it started off in nursing. And I had a huge career shift as I was going through just prelim classes, trying to determine what I wanted to do and if it was going to be nursing. And I just realized early on that I loved people, I loved helping people, but I wanted to be more on the prevention side of it versus the treatment side of it. So I ended up changing my major and immediately just knew that I was going to be able to serve people, help them with their nutrition, their exercise. But it's really became so much more than that. That was when I was in my undergrad. I didn't have the hands-on experience, but was very fortunate to find a really great internship my senior year of college. Started working for a small boutique health and fitness studio that focused on personalized nutrition, personalized workouts, customization. So I started working there and it ended up becoming my full-time job. So as I was graduating college, I was already had my foot through the door, just transitioned to full-time. College was preventing me from doing full-time, so I just worked part-time and fell in love. And I thought, this is really the way that I want to serve people. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, as you mentioned in your bio. So things have evolved as I have evolved. I worked for that company for about 12 years and then decided that I wanted to start my own business. And here I am. I've been in business for myself now for 10 years, and 6 of those have been online. And that's where Metabolic Fix came from. But I knew very early on, as I mentioned, that I really wanted to help women specifically. I just knew that I really wanted to connect with women and be that person that they could turn to when things weren't working right. And I really wanted to offer a no judgment, no shame, just come as you are. We all have our issues and challenges in life. I do too. And I'm here to support you and share my knowledge and passion with you. So that's how it started. But very quickly after I got started, I realized that there was way more to the equation besides eat less and move more, or do this strength training and do this cardio and eat healthy foods, a very broad statement. And so shortly after working and starting that full-time job, I went on to get advanced certifications in metabolic and hormonal health. It actually took me a couple of years to do that. Finished off traveling to Rhode Island to submit my in-person exam and do the final part. And now here I am. After that, I would say all of the work I started to do went more specific to sustainable body transformation change. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that later, but focusing in primarily on hormonal health and metabolic health, which is where Metabolic Fix, my company, came from.
Yeah. And if you're willing to, I think one of the things that's also really interesting is your own experience. Like, even with all the education that you had, you too sort of ended up caught in this diet cycle, because we're all subjected to this information. Will you share that piece of your story?
Yeah. So I'm really happy you asked, because I really do think it has so much to do with where I am, who I am, and my company and the work that we do. So coming out of college, I very much so, and keep in mind to the listeners, I didn't have Instagram every day. I didn't have, Facebook all the time or any of that. So Instagram wasn't even a thing that I had. So I turned to magazines. I used to look at the Oxygen magazine and all of these magazines. And at that time, skinny and just thin, and on Oxygen, that was more of a fitness magazine. The women did have a bit more muscle. And so I thought, okay, if I want to be a great trainer, if I want people to think this about me, I really need to look the part. And so I felt like I was an exception. Since I was a personal trainer and a nutrition coach, I felt like I needed to do more than what I was suggesting. And I had this belief, which isn't true, that if you do more, you'll get faster and better results. So if you tell your clients to exercise or lift weights 3 times a week, you do 6. or 7. If you tell your clients to eat healthy, you eat 3 times, 10 times healthier than them, and you also eat less, because that's only going to speed up how fast you get to where you want to be. So very quickly, I got very much wrapped up into the dieting trap. My approaches weren't lasting. It wasn't sustaining. I was binging. I was restricting. I was in a very, very horrible place. It consumed every single second of my day. I weighed myself every day, first thing in the morning. And it was so bad that even when I told myself I wasn't going to get on the scale, I had to. It was like an addiction. I had to get on the scale. I had to see what that number said for the day. And I was just so wrapped up into this. It got to the point where I couldn't go out for a coffee date. If I did, it was black coffee. Actually, I kind of leaned towards coffee because I knew that I could get black coffee. I had safe foods. I know that may sound hard to believe, but I had this list of, these approved foods that I could eat. But mind you, when I went on vacation or out to dinner, I couldn't always find those foods. And the thought of someone using oil or butter just threw me over the top. So naturally, I got very anxious and just didn't eat out a lot and ended up losing about 20 pounds. I was about 20 pounds lighter than I am now, which is just so hard to believe because I'm petite. I'm just naturally that way. I don't have 20 pounds to spare. And so lost 20 pounds almost, got down to my lowest weight, 00, was by far my most unhealthiest I've ever been in my life. Had perimenopausal hormones, had no sex hormones, no cycle, just losing my hair, obsessed with my food, just in a really, really low spot in my life. And I realized I can't do this anymore. And so I just hit that point where the dieting wasn't working, the starving wasn't working, I was binging and the cravings were through the roof. The training wasn't fun. It was a chore. It was punishment. It was work. And I just really lost touch with myself. And I had to find Ashley again. And so that was the end of that, but the new beginning for me. And slowly but surely, I started to heal myself mentally as well, physically. And I mean, still to this day, I was just telling a client before I met with you that I still get a little anxious about getting hungry because I used to walk around hungry all the time. After I quit dieting, I was like, I'm never going to go hungry again. And so the thought of like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to eat until 7. Dinner reservations have been pushed out. I still get this low level, oh my gosh, that's going to be too long. I'm not going to survive. But then I remind myself, hey, you're well fed. You can have a snack. You eat great all the time. Like eat a larger lunch. It's all good. But when you come from that state of mind, it can really impact you literally for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And I think, thank you for sharing all of that because I know it's a tough time, and especially in our industry, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a piece that ends up just like menopause and perimenopause, right? Happens behind closed doors, and it becomes this guilt and shame cycle that can be really difficult. But I think the piece of you sharing it and what I think is so important is that we're not alone. We're all living in this world. We're all figuring out how to navigate it. And that's part of why we're having this conversation, right? So we're going to talk more about the hormone piece, but let's make sure everybody's on the same page with us. When we say body composition, right? I talk about, body fat percentage, muscle mass, those kinds of things. But how do you explain body composition so that we're all moving in the same direction today?
Yeah. So the one thing I really want to make sure everyone understands is that a lower scale number doesn't mean health. Because I was at my lowest weight, literally a 00 as an adult woman. You can't really get any smaller unless I go into children's clothes at that point. And I was by far at my most unhealthiest point in my life, mentally and physically. So the number on the scale being lower isn't a good indicator of how healthy you truly are. And so when I talk about body composition, I actually step outside of the number on the scale and I focus more specifically on muscle mass. So lean muscle mass versus your body fat percentage. And that's how much body fat you have on your frame. Oftentimes in our culture, we think exclusively about weight loss as a whole, but we're not really thinking, are we losing muscle? or are we losing fat? And oftentimes with the crash dieting, as you know, we're losing some body fat, but a lot of muscle as well. And so when I talk about body composition to my audience, I'm talking about lean muscle versus body fat. So body fat percentage, lean muscle mass percentage. And we can measure that through several ways, but even simply taking some circumference measurements and progress photos can give you a lot of information about your body composition, because 140 pounds can look very different on two women, one that has more muscle and one that has less. And so focusing on body composition is much better than focusing on the scale.
1,000%. And I love that you brought it back to health, right? Because everything at Salad with a Side of Fries, everything, that you do with your clients and your podcast, we're all operating from the assumption that health is our objective,
Yes.
right? So like if you're listening and just looking for a number on the scale and you don't really care how you get there, more power to you, love you. And when you're ready to focus on health, come back, right?
Right.
So for the rest of this conversation, right, we're all on the same page. Our objective is health, and a health supporting body composition looks like more lean muscle mass and a range of body fat, right? Not 0% body fat. Like fat serves a true purpose, right? So then when we come to the hormone side of all of this, I think a lot of people with this connection between hormones and body composition, it's sort of overlooked until perimenopause and menopause. The truth, though, is that these things are intertwined all throughout life, right? So will you talk through some of the considerations and how hormones impact both our muscle mass and our fat mass?
Oh, it impacts your body fat significantly. It impacts your ability to build and sustain muscle mass significantly. Even if you're in your 30s or 20s, it's time for you to start becoming hormone aware. Your hormones matter. It's impacting everything: muscle mass, your body fat percentage, where your body fat is distributed on your body. That was actually something I learned through my certification, which was such an aha moment for me. And when I could make those connections with fat distribution and hormones, and then we could do things like Dutch testing or even lab testing to confirm, it was like a wow, aha moment. Like, I cannot believe that your body is showing signs of dysfunction without you even fully being aware of it, from how your body fat is distributed, your ability to build and sustain muscle mass. It's huge. I mean, your hormones are impacting everything. And I do think that, and I'll just say it honestly, so many people are taking advantage of consumers and focusing in on hormones exclusively for weight loss. And it's really sad because, yes, your hormones impact weight loss, but like you said, the larger conversation is body fat and muscle mass, but then your overall health. And there's so many other things that your hormones are doing that are overlooked because we're so concerned with just the number on the scale.
Absolutely. And so let's go into it, right? So if someone's carrying it more around, their belly versus their hips versus like the back, right? Some of those kinds of things, how we can start to understand what's happening.
Yeah. So this was in, the earlier 2000s, but when I took my certification, and it's interesting because more and more research is coming out to show that this is true and valid, and it's not just made up science or fake science, as people like to call it, but there is a correlation with certain hormones and body fat distribution. So I'll hit some of the primary ones. So oftentimes I'll start with this one, and this is the most trendiest one that you will see people talking about online, but people will oftentimes say that belly fat is correlated with cortisol. Yes, that's true, but there's more to it.
Yeah.
So there is in the front of your stomach. So, if you're in a comfortable spot and listening, you can look down at your stomach. Maybe you're not, looking at the front of your stomach, right around the belly button region and above, right under, maybe the rib cage. That's going to be more correlated with cortisol. But your suprailiac, which is known as your love handle, your hip bone, that's more correlated with insulin. So blood sugar regulation, your insulin levels. And as you get into perimenopause, there's something that people nowadays are calling the menopausal belly. And that is when your estrogen starts to drop, you can start to see a little bit of a second belly almost developing under the belly button. And so that's correlated with lower estrogen. And then when we get into storing primarily in the hips and the thighs, so looking at your hips, the meatiest part of where, your glutes and your hips are, that can be correlated with estrogen dominance. And so these are things that are actually true. Upper back is correlated more with testosterone for women and usually more on the depletion side versus a surplus. Oftentimes, a woman's not walking around with super elevated testosterone levels. We unfortunately don't have that hormone profile, so we don't have to worry about that, which also means we don't have to worry about bulking up because we don't have the hormones. Actually, most women in perimenopausal years don't have enough hormones to even function, so you don't have to worry about bulking up at all. But yes, there is a correlation with your body fat. But here's what I like to do is if we see that you are prone to potentially storing in one area over the other, use that as information. We can dig deeper from that. We can take that and say, okay, it looks like proportionately you are storing more in the hips or the suprailiac, which is again the love handle hip region, or the front of your belly, or wow, actually it's just right under the belly. We can dig deeper and start off with lifestyle changes, nutritional protocols, little things to help you. And then if we also want to add in some functional testing, Dutch testing, we can layer more on to get a definite, is this really a problem or not? But remember, oftentimes when it comes to the hip area and the insulin, because a lot of women complain about that. I don't know if you hear it too. I
All the
just
time.
can't lose these saddle bag. I'm not sure what they call them. I'm like, I understand. I hear what you mean, but that means your body is talking to you. And so even if you're in a caloric deficit and you're strength training and you're not seeing the body fat go from there, let's take a look at actually what you're eating and how your body is breaking down these foods. Because a calorie is not just a calorie. You can't eat 1,500 calories of donuts and expect to have a muscular lean physique, versus someone that eats a pretty relatively clean diet that's getting really wholesome whole foods most of the time. And so we can really look at some of the very specific things with each client, and even tweaking some of those things can help make a huge difference and get your body responding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things for everybody to start doing sooner rather than later, and of course, if you didn't do this, you're not doomed, right? But I think starting to track your cycle, understanding your own baseline. I use the Fem app. I'm curious what you recommend to people, or some of the things that as they're starting to track, you want them to pay attention to.
Right. So I think let's start off with the lowest hanging fruit possible. There are so many tracking apps, and I've looked at several of them, and a lot of them have similarities. Some key things that you want to be able to document is obviously when you're starting your flow, how many days. So whatever app you're using, the more expensive ones are going to be a bit more sophisticated. But, when you're starting your cycle, hopefully the app will allow for you to track how many days it is. You can also list symptoms, how heavy was your flow or light was your flow. And then the app itself is going to give you a prediction of when you should be ovulating. And we can talk about this if you want, but then after that, you're actually going to be transitioning from the follicular to the luteal phase. So hormones switch. And this is when also energetically, metabolically, a lot of things change in your body, and you can pay attention to these things. In perimenopausal years, you start to kind of see some difficulties in the second phase of the cycle, more so than the first. And usually the app will give you a prediction of when you're going to start your period, but the more you track, hopefully the more accurate it's going to be at predicting. So I can say start there. I personally use an Oura ring to track my cycle because it takes all of the work out of it for me, and it also tracks when my temperature spikes. So for those of you maybe listening in, and I know I didn't learn these things until I went on, actually I didn't even learn these things in college. It was when I went on to do my advanced certification. So for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with this, when you ovulate, the hormone progesterone is going to take over and your body temperature is going to increase. This increase is going to be pretty significant. So if you're taking your temperature, my Oura ring tracks it, but you can take your temperature as well. You're going to see a shift in your body temperature, and it's actually going to stay elevated for the duration of that luteal phase until you start your period, which for most women is going to be about 10 to 12 days. Your temperature is going to drop, and within 24 hours, your cycle is going to start. And so I like the Oura ring because it tracks my temperature every day, but I can see the spike. I can ensure that I'm staying elevated for the correct amount of days through my luteal phase. And like clockwork, When my temperature drops back down, my respiratory rate goes back down, because as your temperature increases, your respiratory rate's going to go up a little bit too. That all comes back down in less than 24 hours, my cycle starts. And so I didn't invest in an Oura Ring until recently. For many years, I've been using an app, and I use Pinkbird, and I think I pay $2.99 a month, or maybe even $10 a year. I mean, it is so affordable. But I also know a lot about my hormones and my body, so I felt comfortable starting with a very simple app. But there are, like, the app you use is probably amazing. Starting there is key, and you should start tracking your cycles in your 20s, or really your teens, but definitely your 20s, and continue doing that all the way until you go into full-on menopause.
Yeah. And I think, the Ring-Con, I think I've talked about this before. That's the ring I have too, also has now added cycle tracking and those kinds of things. So there's so many resources out there. But I think the fundamental of what we're saying is getting to know your body and your baseline, what's normal for you, as opposed to what your doctor might say is normal because it's common, or acceptable because it's common.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Every single one of us, we're different, all of us. And this is something I learned very early on in my career. Not just were my clients storing body fat differently, two women the exact same age, working out the exact same amount of days, totally different body composition, but they were two totally different women, hormonally, metabolically, lifestyle-wise. And so just like you said with your cycle, this is the way that you want to customize everything for yourself, because your body is unique. And even within a month or two, you can see some changes in your own cycle. And so it's important to track these things. So you're thinking, oh, I have this all figured out. I ovulate on day 15 or 16 or 14, and my period starts on this day. And then maybe another month or two, it changes. You're like, okay, that's interesting. I'll just pay close attention and maybe think about what was different this month, or has anything changed in my life? Am I more stressed out? Am I less stressed out? And so you'll even see from month to month how your body is shifting.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, right, with our hormones, with a focus on body composition, that also means our nutrition choices, our sleep, our stress all come into play. And, of course, the complexities when we're in that menopause, perimenopause phase. So I want to dig deeper into those pieces after we highlight our partner for this episode. So friends, if you're here and you're listening, I'll say you're a fan of Salad with a Side of Fries podcast. And that means merch is another way that you can support everything we do here and what we do for you. What's more, maybe it's the perfect reminder, not just to yourself of your commitment to your health, a tool to help you keep going. And it also might help you spark a conversation and inspire someone else. So from the workout tanks and mat to the gym bag, the bento box for lunch, a magnet for your fridge that says protein and fiber, and so much more, you owe it to yourself to check out the complete store. There's also great giftable items. So remember, your purchase supports the show, all we do for you. So just head over to asaladwithasideoffries.com, browse the full selection, or simply text the word fries, F-R-I-E-S, to 844-947-4846. You'll get the link right to your phone. Check out the full Salad with a Side of Fries merch store. Your purchase supports all the work we do here, shows your podcast pride, and like I said, potentially sparks a conversation for you to pay it forward and inspire someone else to change their health too. So again, text the word fries, F-R-I-E-S, to 844-947-4846. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. All right, Ashley, maybe we talk about some of the relevant symptoms or changes as we end up in, high, low estrogen, progesterone, right? As these hormones start to change, what are some of the things that we'll notice and tools that we can use in terms of, addressing everything?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And I'm going to give you some symptoms, and it will apply. Sometimes it can feel a little frustrating, because some of the symptoms of low progesterone can also mimic low estrogen. And actually, I just did a Dutch consult with a client, and we thought, based off of her symptoms, that it was 100% of progesterone deficiency and she would have low progesterone, but ended up coming back well within normal range, and estrogen was more of the issue. And her detoxification pathways and all of those things. So again, you never really know, but I will say these are some general symptoms. If you have them, it's definitely worth you taking some time to start investigating and paying more attention. So let's just start off with the cycles. I think that's a really great metric for us women. I think a lot of people even say it's another vital sign, right? We check our blood pressure, our resting heart rate. Those things are very important, but your cycle is really, really important. And unfortunately, up until recent times, it was something that we never talked about. We never talked about our period. We were always so discreet about carrying a tampon or a pad because God forbid if someone sees that we have a tampon or a pad on us or we drop it, at least where I came from, it was something
For
that we were
sure.
very quiet about. And we were told in school and high school as well to just, if you have a problem, you just come tell me quietly. You don't say it out loud. And, not that you're going to yell it from the rooftops, but it was like almost as if it primed you to feel a little embarrassed about it. And so I think starting with your cycle is key. So let's dive right in. So, number one, if you are noticing that your cycles are abnormally light or heavy, so let me explain what that means a little bit. So, if you are experiencing really heavy bleeding where you have to change a pad or a tampon every, let's say, 1-2 hours, and you're going through a tampon and a pad, there's lots of clots in your blood and you just feel like it's so depleting and exhausting. I mean, I even have clients say, I get worried, like, am I going to stop bleeding? Like, if not, I'm really concerned I'm going to lose too much blood here. That can be a huge sign that there's something even more serious like endometriosis or polyps, but it can also be an indicator of estrogen dominance. That's something really common as well. If your periods are on the lighter side, so at times I'll hear clients say, oh, I started my cycle, but I'm just spotting. I actually don't really have a bleed. And it's a really light pink color. It's not that really deep red that we want to see. Initially when we first start our cycle, it will taper off and become more lighter pink and brown towards the end. But initially, and I just maybe wear a panty liner or change my tampon once for the day, and then I stop bleeding. That can also be a sign of a hormonal imbalance. So those are two big ones. Spotting throughout the month is a sign that there's a hormonal imbalance. We should not be spotting consistently throughout the month. If your period's approaching and you're 10 days out or 2-3 weeks out and you're spotting, that's definitely worth investigating because something is going on there. If you are tracking your temperature, either orally or using a more sophisticated ring, I think you have one on too. There's probably a lot of different ones out there, and you're not seeing a temperature spike and staying elevated for that duration of the luteal phase, the 10 to 12-ish days. It can vary a little bit, but you should see some consistency. That's a sign that you're not ovulating. And if you are not in menopause, you should be ovulating. And if you're not ovulating, then that could be a sign that either something else is going on. Maybe there's some type of HPA dysfunction, or maybe meaning your body's just under some extra stress, or maybe it is a sign that you're getting closer to perimenopause, menopause, because naturally you may start to notice that you're not ovulating every month. So that's something else you can watch out for. I also like to say a lot of water retention after ovulation. So if you notice after you ovulate, you just go up and pretty much stay even not just 3 pounds, because that's pretty normal in my opinion. We're all going to fluctuate a couple pounds every day, but I've seen some clients jump 5 to 8 pounds and nothing changes. And so it's not the weight that's the scary part, because the number can fluctuate for many things. It's also the way that they feel. They can't button their pants. They don't fit into their clothes. They say that they feel pregnant. They're retaining water all over their body. Their rings aren't moving. They just feel very uncomfortable, inflamed, puffy. At that point, I always say, and generally that comes along with sleepless nights, extra anxiety, hot sweats potentially, appetite changes, bloating. Those are all definitely signs that there could be something going on, and generally shifting a bit more towards progesterone at that time. But that's really key things. If your cycle's coming too frequently, so every 3 weeks instead of 4, or you're not having a period, but every 40 days, 38 days, those are signs that I say, watch out for. Most of the time, if my clients are falling between 25 days being on the shorter end, 32, 35 days, somewhere within that range, I'm not too concerned. If they're on the 25 day, cycle rotation, I do like to take a look and just make sure everything's good. I do have some clients that naturally set there, just as if I have some clients too that set naturally more closer to 35. We just want to make sure there's nothing else going on and they're not having a lot of the other symptoms that I mentioned. But those are some of the symptoms. Even if your cycle is normal, if you notice a big shift in your sleep, that's huge for women. Generally, after ovulation, your sleep, if you do have some level of just a progesterone deficiency, your hormones aren't peaking to the level they need to be, you may find yourself more anxious, on edge, tense, not sleeping as well, struggling to fall asleep, your mind racing due to the anxiety. And so, those are just some things to pay attention to. Some are obviously related to your bleed and how heavy or light, how many cramps you have, but also energy, sleep, mood, how you're feeling in your clothes. Pay attention to that more than the scale, but how are you doing as a whole? Are you craving a bunch of things? Those all of those symptoms can indicate something could be going on. It's definitely worth investigating.
Yeah, and as we talk about this, right? Like there's a piece of this that's natural and expected. And then there are the extremes where we're saying, okay, let's investigate further. And then taking it back to body composition, what are some of the adjustments that you would recommend as a trainer, whether on the, fitness side and on the nutrition side, like where we might want to focus at different times of the cycle and so that we're working with our bodies instead of constantly trying to fight them?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I know so many listeners are going to love that one because I have clients every day asking me, "Hey, Ashley, how can I really customize my training and nutrition a bit more to fit my cycles?" Because I think we all experience some hormonal shifts. So one thing I want to say is that it's normal to feel a little tired as you get closer to your period. It's normal to want to pull inward a little bit more. It's also normal if you notice most of the time right around your ovulation, you're going to be more extroverted. You're going to want to connect more. That may be the good hair days, the good skin days. Estrogen is just at its highest peak. So generally, energetically, you're going to feel your best. You're going to look your best. That would be a great time to tackle projects, difficult conversations. You're going to be able to articulate yourself much better. And it's a lot to do with our hormones. And this is why I mentioned at first, our hormones impact so much more than the scale. I'm not even talking about the scale. I know I mentioned water retention, but clients notice that without even getting on the scale. A few of them will go on and get on it. And I'm thinking, hey, you shouldn't do that. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm up 8 pounds. And I'm like, we didn't actually even need the scale to confirm that. You could feel it. So anyways, back on track with what you're asking. Let's start off with day 1 of your cycle, which is the start of your follicular phase. So typically when you first start your cycle, you definitely need to listen to your body over any trainer or coach or book you're reading. If your energy is really low, listen to your body. Maybe make it a rest day. If you have a heavier flow, meaning a normal but still heavier flow on day 1, 2, you may not feel like having a really hard strength training session. Maybe you want to go for a walk or do some yoga or just take a total rest day and give your body more restorative care. Maybe you want to lift weights, but you need to back it off a little bit. Listen to your body. Generally, around day 3 to 5, your cycle is going to start to taper off and estrogen is going to start to increase. Now, this is when you're going to start feeling pretty good again. It's natural when you're going through your cycle again to feel a little bit more tired. Your energy may be a little bit lower. You may have to make a few modifications, but listen to your body most importantly. But let's say day 3 to 5, you're going to start feeling more like yourself. Your cycle is going to start to taper back. Your energy is going to start to come back. You're going to feel pretty good. So this is the time to really optimize your time in the gym. So when you kind of get out of that first week and you're hitting, let's say day 5 and onward up until ovulation, maximize your time in the gym. This is the time to challenge yourself. This is the time to try and get in those consistent workouts. This is the time to if you're trying a new class or doing a new workout program, these are the times that you want to step into it. Your motivation's going to be higher, you're going to feel good, and your body's going to respond very well. This is also a great time for fat loss. Your body's going to be very responsive, and we're going to see movement, especially if you're dialing in your nutrition, your lifestyle habits, such as sleep and hydration and daily movement. You're really going to see some progress here. And so when ovulation happens, this is really the peak. So this is when we typically are going to feel our absolute best. We're going to have great hair, great skin. We're naturally probably going to be more drawn to even wanting to wear things that we look nice in, that we feel good in, because we feel good. We want to show that we feel good. And we have our own version of feeling good. You don't have to wear a two-piece bikini around your workplace. I'm not saying that, but you may feel like, like I feel good in my jeans today, or I feel like my hair is just looking nicer today. And that's really going to be a great time too, to push yourself in the gym. You're going to feel most of the time at your peak then. And so that's going to be the peak of strength. And usually it's going to last just for a couple days though. And so then after we have ovulation, we enter the luteal phase. And this is where we do want to be considerate to our body. When progesterone becomes the dominant hormone, estrogen's there, but just very minimal. It's like base level there. Progesterone's really high and thriving. You want to listen more to your body. It's not that you're not going to be responsive for a fat loss phase or a body comp phase, as we like to say, but you may notice it's just a little harder to see results. Maybe your body's sticking a little bit more. Maybe you're still able to train pretty consistently, but you're not recovering quite as well. Or you feel like maybe you need to do a little bit less, or you need to add in an extra rest day. And as you get closer and closer to your cycle, you may really start to say, okay, like my energy is just really shifting here. Or why, when I go to pick up the weight that I was just lifting last week, I feel like it's 100 pounds more. That's to do with your hormones. And listen to your body. And if you're not sleeping well, and if you are dealing with some of the other symptoms I mentioned, then that's also going to contribute, even if you're naturally going to experience some of those symptoms. So I say you can still strength train, but this may be the time you just maintain those peaks that you had for the first part of your cycle. And then you can sustain that. You can try to continue training, but let's say you hit walls and you're not able to. Work in some more recovery days. Walking is wonderful. It's free, it's underrated, and it works amazingly for body comp, hormonal health, and metabolic and mental health. So, I mean, it's literally the best thing you can do for your body. So walk more, do more yoga, really listen to your body. And then we start it all over again as soon as we have our bleed. And that starts day one of our next cycle. And so that's how I do it with myself. But I also recommend that with my clients. But here's what I told my client yesterday that asked. I said, here's the facts. I laid it out just as I explained to you. But I said this, and this is what I recommend to everyone listening. Download an app, start tracking your own cycle today, and pay attention to how you feel. Because you may not be textbook. You may be a little outside of what I just mentioned, and that could be normal for you. But track your cycle to know. I know my body through tracking my cycle, not just education. And so that's what I would say right now is take the information I shared with you, put that in your back pocket, but then start tracking your cycle and see how you line up with that.
And I think that it's so important that you say that, because that then allows everyone, even as we're in that perimenopause and menopause, post-menopause phase, to adjust, because it's the same adjustments and tweaks that you shared. It's just a different balance between them. I often say, as you were saying, the walking, the yoga, the more gentle pieces are probably going to be more effective and feel better when we're in that perimenopause, menopause phase. So the walking and the strength training versus the more intense cardio and those kinds of things, or the HIIT classes. What do you recommend? Because most of our listeners are getting to that point. And so they're looking at, they're tracking. Maybe it's a little inconsistent these days as they're approaching this phase of life. And they can use these recommendations, but it still feels a little off.
Yeah, that's a great question too. So I would say if you are hitting maybe more towards perimenopause and you're noticing that your cycles aren't consistent, or maybe they're not coming, but every couple of months now. And so you can't really follow that standardized formula that I just shared. I'd say listen to your body. So here's a couple truths when it comes to perimenopause and when you truly are there. I want to say this as well. There are other reasons why your hormones can be depleted that's not related to perimenopause. And it's the stress epidemic I feel like we're in as a culture right now. And it's depleting our hormones. And so I see women that's 30, 35 years old that have no hormones, just as if they are in full-on menopause. So I see this with younger women as well as those that are actually going through this stage of life. So when your hormones are depleted this way and under the assumption that you're not doing HRT, so hormone replacement therapy, a couple of things you want to be sensitive to. You want to be sensitive to the amount of stress that you put on your body. So things like HIIT classes, steady state cardio when you're in zone 3, zone 4. Other examples, maybe Orange Theory, where you're all out, or all out CrossFit classes, that type of intensity. You really want to avoid that and focus more on strength training, traditional strength training, where you apply progressive overload, depending on your symptoms, 2 to 3 sessions per week. 2 sessions would be the minimum suggestion. 3 would be more optimal for building and sustaining muscle tissue. We know that 2 you're going to sustain, but if you really want to build, go more to 3, focusing in on compound movements, squats, lunges, deadlifts, lat pull downs, pull ups, assistant or body weight, push ups. Those are the compound movements, just to give you some idea, not the bicep curls and the lat raises, lateral raises for your shoulders, or the tricep extensions. Those are great, but those are not the compound movements. It's really going to give you your bang for your buck. You want to focus more on those. Adding in a lot of leisure walking, and for you really doubling down on your nutrition. Not that you don't need to do that before, because you do, but really doubling down on your nutrition to ensure that you're getting in your protein, you're getting in healthy whole foods to support your hormones to the best of your ability. You're really focusing in on sleep and recovery. It really does become more important. It's not that you can't exercise, because you need it more than ever, but you want to make sure you're doing it in a very smart and strategic way. Versus if you are still having that monthly cycle, you may be able to push it a little harder, especially if your hormones are healthy, and do more, and your body can handle that stress load more efficiently compared to someone that's in full on perimenopause or menopause.
Absolutely. And I appreciate so much of what you're saying, because the nutrition plays into it. Choosing, like we always talk about here, low glycemic impact nutrition, eating for balanced blood sugar is supporting your hormone balance, right? Is
Exactly.
supporting all of these things, your muscle maintenance, removing body fat if you have it to remove, all those things. Ashley, I feel like this is a good point before we shift into our off-topic questions. A final thought, something to wrap this up, this connection between hormones and body composition?
Yeah. So I think when you are going through this transition in life, it can feel scary and it can feel isolating and you can feel very lonely. But I do want for you to know that you're not alone. All of us women together, collectively, we're on this journey together, and we can all hold hands and get through it together. You're going to have your own symptoms and journey, but essentially, this is something we're all going to experience. And I do think that there is support and help there. And I also want for you to know your better days are not behind you. And so that's something I really want to encourage your listener to just keep in mind and even say to themselves, because oftentimes I think that we think we're done. Oh, we're done. We're in perimenopause. We're never going to be healthy again. We're never going to have our body comp back. It's just like almost throw the towel in because I'm never going to get to where I want to be. That is so far from the truth. And your better days can truly still be ahead of you. The only thing that needs to change is your strategy and your approach. And so please don't try to rely on things you did in your 20s or 30s, because those things will leave you disappointed and discouraged. It's time for a new approach and a new strategy.
Love it. 1,000% yes. All right. You ready for our rapid fire off topic questions?
Let's go.
All right. What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week? Not that anything's naughty, but balance.
No, I love that question. That's really a great one. So the best thing I've done for my health this week is actually add in more restorative exercise. So I am type A, high stress personality, constantly watching my own hormones, love to strength train. So we gravitate to what we enjoy. But I said, you know what? I really need to work on deep breathing, yoga, activating or, recharging my nervous system. So I did restorative yoga, which is, again, something that I challenge myself with. So that's the best thing I did for my health. I did a lot of other things, but I want to just say that because I do think sometimes we don't give that type of exercise and movement enough credit. Yes, I've strength trained. Yes, I've been walking, but that did wonders for me to just kind of get myself back to level ground. The naughtiest thing. If I can just go back maybe a week or so ago, we were on vacation. I'd say the naughtiest thing in my guilty pleasure is a good cocktail. And
Yeah.
yes, I know alcohol's not good and I know all those things, but I'm also human and I like to live a balanced lifestyle. And I don't drink often, but I like very unique cocktails. So we were at the Bahamas and so I ended up trying some, and I don't like a lot of sugar, but I got this like really delicious cucumber cocktail, and it was the most refreshing thing. And I would say that would be the naughtiest since alcohol is such a hot topic right now.
Yeah. Love it. All right. If you were the host of Cheers to Your Success podcast or the founder of Metabolic Fix, what would you do?
I would own a little cafe that served healthy meals and make coffee all day and wonderful lattes. I love coffee. And I would accommodate all the dairy-free people because I'm also dairy-free. And it's really unfortunate when I go somewhere and they don't have oat milk or a milk that I love. And I would serve like really great salads and like all the extra proteins on them. That would definitely be what I would do.
I would go. Your favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or you could give us a fiction book.
Okay. Ooh, this is not my area of expertise, but okay, I have a couple. Like, I'm still a little kid at heart, and I really have enjoyed rereading the Harry Potter series with my daughters. I have a 6 and a 9-year-old, almost 10-year-old. My oldest one is getting into it. So I would say that is just kind of something that I've enjoyed. And then this isn't my work, although I will say a little bit of mindset. So I hope I'm not cheating. I recently read The Let Them Theory, and that book was just like, it's not health and nutrition, but it really spoke to me, not really so much as a business owner, but more as a human and a person. And so I thought that was a great read too.
Yeah. All right. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
I would say depression and anxiety.
Ooh, good one. If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Flying.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
Not following through with commitments.
I hear you.
No, truly, if I say something, I really want to try to do it. And I really hold myself to that high standard. And so I try to not overcommit and stay. If I say I'm going to show up for you, I want for you to count on me.
Yeah. All right. Last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
I think moving forward, we are starting to look at health more as a whole, which is really exciting. Instead of isolating calories or workouts and just kind of picking that puzzle piece, we're looking at it as a whole now and looking at more functional tests and the individual person and truly being able to measure metabolic rates. And so I really feel like we're headed in the right direction when it comes to that. I'm just really hoping that as we develop in companies and doctors and specialists create programs and things that support this, that it's more affordable for the average consumer. But I definitely think that we're headed in that direction. We're already there, but I think it's going to go more there.
Absolutely. Well, Ashley Fillmore, thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more. Check out Cheers to Your Success podcast, all the things.
Yes. So you can find me on my website, metabolicfix.com. I am the host of my podcast, as you mentioned, Cheers to Your Success. I'm releasing 1 to 2 times a week, sharing all of the information about metabolic health, hormones, metabolism. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm always hanging out there. And I absolutely love connecting with my clients and just new faces through my DMs. And so those places would be the primary places to find me.
Perfect. And we'll put links to everything down below for everybody. Yeah, for sure. Keep it easy. Thank you again. Just appreciate the way you explain everything, your expertise and your energy. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, friends. On Friday, in this week's Nutrition Nugget bonus episode, we're talking about IQ bars. Have you seen these?
IQ bars. Are those like a protein bar, right?
Yeah. So I haven't tried them. A member of our Healthy Vibe tribe asked about them. So as I do, I made a note for us to look at them together. So we're going to do it on Friday in this week's bite-sized bonus episode. So be sure wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button, and then your app will alert you when it goes live on Friday. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideoffries.com. Please send a message, whatever platform is easiest for you. I love hearing from you. So share your ideas, your takeaways, your questions. This is also the easiest way to get more information about working with me as your health coach. Thank you again to Ashley Fillmore for joining us this week.
Well, thank you so much for having me on today. This has been so much fun. I really enjoyed our conversation.
So until next week, remember, your hormones interplay with every aspect of your body, including your muscle mass and your fat mass. The good news is understanding them allows you to work with them and with your body. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.